Hey pals. If I don't say it like that, it doesn't feel real. Welcome to Frame and Fiber. My name is Paige, and I'm so glad you're here. Frame and Fiber is my picture framing and yarn shop in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. And today's video is going to be about picture framing, specifically cross stitch and needlepoint. This is my video. This is May, of course it's my video, because hello, it's my video. Today is May 18th, and this is my video for my May, oh, dang it, I can never say it, May Live-A-Day 2022 challenge, which is hosted by Yolanda Jordan of My Pretty Brown Doll. And it is a challenge to go live every day in the month of May. This week I'm talking about picture framing. That is my job. That's what I'm going to be talking about. So a couple things, if you're watching the replay, thank you so much. If I talk about anything in these videos, specifically this week's picture framing videos, that you want more clarification on something, or you have a question, there's something you're curious about, leave it in the comment section of one of the videos, or you can go over to my community tab on my Paige the Framer YouTube channel, or Frame and Fiber YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, I forgot the name of my YouTube channel. Go over to the community tab and you can leave your question there as well. It's a spazzy day. I was very busy with customers today, so my brain's a little fried. Okay, so picture framing, cross stitch, and needlepoint. This is a needlepoint. It is done with wool and silk, or a combination of the two, and cotton. I feel like it's just wool and silk, but it's probably cotton as well, combinations of those, and it's done on a canvas. Sometimes it's called canvas stitching because of the canvas that it's done on. So that's a needlepoint. It's very stiff. This is great for pillows. This is great for upholstery. And then this is a cross stitch. This is done on linen. Cross stitch is done on a variety of fabrics. This is linen. And it's done, it's called cross stitch because all of the stitches, most of the stitches, are made with little X's. And you count the threads of your fabric, and that's how big you make your stitch. It's done on a grid. Both of these are done on grids, I think. I could be lying. Sometimes the canvases for the needlepoint come painted. Anyway, that's the difference. And I wanted to do this video with this one in particular because this is for a customer, and it's going to be, I was framing it today, so I figured before I put it in its frame, I'd share it with you. So there is a difference in the way picture framers will tackle these two projects. And it also, within that, or should I say, each one of these also, if it gets no mat, which this one is having no mat framed. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm sorry. This one is being framed with no mat. It's a different application than if it were to be framed with a mat. And the same thing with this. And so mostly what I'm going to be talking about for these two is the mounting. That's kind of what I think most stitchers are interested in. You never want the glass to touch your work because it can crush your stitches. And it can just take that lovely three-dimensional quality of the stitches. It could just damage that, and you don't want that. So a mat board, which looks pretty, will also help and function as the spacer to keep the glass from touching your piece, or between the glass and the piece, I put a spacer. Oops, it goes this way. And so then the glass sits where my finger is. And so the spacer keeps the glass from touching the piece. The mat board does the same thing, and that works for both of these. Now with cross stitching, you wrap the piece around a substrate. This is foam board. If this were a delicate piece, maybe it was damaged, it's super old and brittle because it wasn't stored properly, I might put first a mat board, a cotton rag mat board underneath this, and then do the substrate just to give it an extra layer of protection. This one doesn't need it because it's brandy new and it's fine. And I am, let's see if I can make this. Yes, I'm pinning the edges. There are a couple different ways to attach the, I always want to say the foam board, the cross stitch to the backer board. I forgot to bring my gun out here. Shoot, and it's live, so I can't edit. So there is the pins. There's another method called lacing, which I do, but not very often because it's kind of not necessary anymore. This product, which is going to be hard to see because everything is in ivory color, but you see, let's see if I can get that to focus. Yeah, right there. See this little guy right here? So that is a little fastener, and that pokes through the fabric into the board and out the back. There's two ways to use them. If I'm using a mat, that's what you see. Let's see. This one right here, because then it goes through to the back. If there was no mat, you would see it here, and then it comes out. Goodness gracious, the side. It's way easier to do these kind of videos with editing. Way easier. This is an alternative to pinning. Pinning is something for you guys at home, if you're going to do this yourself, would probably be the easiest. This is a whole system that you would have to buy, and I just don't think it would be worth it for you to purchase if you weren't mounting several cross stitches a week. So it just wouldn't be worth the money for you. So pinning is what you would end up doing. And I think pinning is completely fine as long as you use stainless steel or brass pins. They don't rust, and it's the rust that you want to worry about. So as long as you know that your pins won't rust, you are good. I have a pretty good source. Well, I have a great source, and I know for a fact that they don't rust. So I do use pins on probably about 50% of the cross stitches I do, and then the other 50% I use these attachments. Why would I use one over the other? Sometimes it might be as simple as I ran out of pins, so I'm going to use this, or vice versa. Sometimes I might use the attachment if this is being matted, so I have a lot of space here and I can just press it through because it doesn't need to wrap around to fit into the frame because there's going to be 2 inches of extra space on the side. So I might use them, and that's kind of mostly, that's not true, I'm lying. I do it all the time. Sometimes it's just whatever I feel like doing. There's no right or wrong for that. Yeah, I would just, the only thing I would warn against is pins that rust. And then for needlepoint, this lady's really good at needlepointing, really good at stitching. Hello, hello, how are you? Yay, I'm so glad you're here. So this is Julie, and she's very good at cross stitching and needlepoint stitching. She doesn't generally come in with pieces that are askew, and I don't have a piece right now to show you that is wonky, but a lot of times because of the tension that the stitchers are putting into the stitches, the square piece of fabric, and when I say square, I mean the right angle. All four corners are right angles. It'll pull in one direction, and so you end up with this trapezoid. Sorry for all the sound. There's lots of cars rushing by. So in order to get your stitching back to square, it needs to be blocked, and it needs to specifically be wet blocked, which freaks out most of the stitchers out there. And it can be, it's time consuming. You do need to have some equipment to do it properly. So I end up blocking pieces for people all the time, even if they're not getting it framed, even if they're making pillows out of it or upholstery. And essentially blocking, you get it wet. If you guys are knitters, it's the same as blocking a sweater. You're allowing the stitches, which is why this isn't cotton, it's definitely wool and linen. You're allowing the stitches to, or the fibers of the threads to relax. And that relaxing allows me to then pull the canvas back into square. And I do that with nails on a piece of board. You could do it at home with pegboard. Maybe you would need nails that fit into the holes. And so I squeeze it, or I get it very wet, and then I stretch it. It's called stretching and blocking. Depending on how out of square a piece is, it could be blocked 2 or 3 times. A lot of times, let's see. Sometimes, but that is something that every stitcher should know ahead of time. I'm not responsible for the bleeding, and that is a huge thing that all stitchers should know. If you're going to put red on white, you should make sure that that red is color fast before you do it. Unless you're a stitcher like Julie, where you don't even need to have anything blocked because you're so good at stitching. So when you are needle pointing, and if you're a beginner especially, make sure your threads are color fast, or if there's not a lot of contrast between your, like if you're not doing reds and whites or darks and lights, which a lot of needle points aren't, you don't necessarily need to worry about it. I think I have only, in the 20 years that I've been doing this, I think maybe 2 pieces the color bled, maybe 2. Like I can remember one specifically, but I don't know if I can remember. Yeah, so it doesn't happen often because needlepoint pieces are, so in cross stitch right now, there's a huge trend in using hand dyed threads, and I'm going to guess that they are not color fast, but cross stitch doesn't need to be wet blocked, so it's okay. I don't know if there's a lot of hand dyed for needlepoint. You might want to ask a needlepoint store what they recommend, or ask them about their threads, because that's obviously you're putting so much work into it that you want to make sure it's not going to bleed. So yeah, that's something that anytime I'm talking with someone at the counter or on Zoom with anyone who's not local, that's one of the first things that I broach with them, is that this does need to be blocked, and blocking means it's going to be getting wet. And so there's a chance, there's always the chance, but it doesn't happen very often. I hope that answered the question. What else? Oh, and if you are using your thread and you check it for color fastness and it is losing color, no fear, you can still use that thread. You just need to, there's a look online. There's a couple things you can use. You can use white vinegar. I think it's an acid that you need to keep the color, it like draws the color out. I might be saying that wrong. There's also sheets that you can use called color catchers that will catch some of the pigments. So you just need to wash that thread enough to get the color out. And once the water runs clear, you're good to go. So that's that for the needlepoint. So after this is blocked, then it needs to be mounted. And there's several ways to do that as well, depending on if you are having it matted. If you're not having it matted, a lot of times the way these are framed, and I forgot my, let me grab my example. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Just like a canvas painting or print, these are called stretcher bars, and things are stretched. This would be stretched around the edge like that, and then this would be stapled, and that keeps it nice and straight. A lot of needle pointers, which I would recommend if you're doing a needlepoint, is have these canvases made. Not canvases, have these stretcher bars, have frames made, and do your pieces on a frame. That will help them from warping, help keep them from warping, I should say. So they can be stapled onto this, and then it's framed. And then if it's matted, once this is blocked, I'll do the same thing as I do here, is I'll wrap this around the foam board, and then I will just attach it that way. Needlepoint does cost more for mounting than cross stitch because it's a lot more labor intensive. It also can hurt my hands, so I don't allow myself to do more than a couple of these. Like maybe once a day I'll do one of these. Thanks, Paige. Some cross-stitch hand-dyed threads state that they're not. Oh yeah, definitely. Cross-stitch is a totally different ball game than needlepoint. Hi, Lisa. Thanks, Peg, for asking that question, though. And hit me up if you have any other questions. Oh shoot, went right out the window. Talking about mounting these. Oh my gosh, it's gone. I'm sorry, pals. So that's the major difference between the mounting of these two, is that this needs to be stretched and blocked, and this just needs to be either pinned, fastened, or laced. Stretched and blocked, and then attached to either a frame, a stretcher bar, which will then go into a frame with no mat, or stretched around a piece of foam board with a mat on top. So this one for here, for instance, this one. This is Julie, and I'm framing this with a mat. And because of just how square this is, I won't need to block this, and I won't need to mount it like that. I will probably just hinge it at the top here with some fasteners, and then it'll just hang. So every single piece is different, and every single one might need to be tweaked. The application, the method that I decide to use, it's never exactly, well, I shouldn't say that. It can definitely change between piece and piece. Let's put it that way. If you are a cross stitcher or a needle pointer, stitcher in general, or if you are an artist who uses any types of fiber or textiles and have any type of picture framing or mounting questions, hit me up. I will say that textiles and fiber arts are definitely one of my specialties. I'll be talking in a later video about object mounting, which is another one of my specialties. So yeah, I think that's it for today, kids. I do picture framing consultations online. So if you are not local to me and would like some picture framing information or need something framed, you can hit me up. pagetheframer@gmail.com is my email address, and I'd love to hear from you. All right. I think tomorrow we might be talking about 3D objects. I didn't look at my notes before I started. So it's picture framing tomorrow too. I hope you found this video interesting. I hope it answered some questions. If it made you think of questions, like I said in the beginning, please leave them below or over on my community tab. You can leave a little post over there. All right. Thanks so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow. I hope you have a lovely day.